Hi guys, welcome back. So in this video we will complete our look schema and begin work on our image scraper. But first let's take a moment to talk a little bit about our Mongo shell, getting to know how to view and edit our entries in MongoDB. So let's open up a couple terminal windows, start MongoDB, and once that's started we can now log into our shell. So our MongoDB shell is our locally hosted environment for MongoDB, and we can make various queries to see what's in there. So let's first start off by taking a look at the DBs. So I have a bunch of DBs, and these are basically automatically created anytime that you use one. So let's use the database I'm currently using for this project, and I want to show collections. So really the only collection that we've created is the users collection. So this is our user schema that we've created, and they pluralize it for us. In order to use the schema, we just simply say db.users. Then we can put whatever we're trying to do. If we want to find all the users, we just say find. And I'm going to attach the pretty method in order to clean it up a little bit. So as you can see, there's two users. The first one that I created does not have Gravatar, and the second one that I created does have a Gravatar since it was created after I added the code for him. And you can see everything else as well as the password being hashed. Let's take a look at where our database is located in our files so that you can change it if you like. In server, config, environment, development, you can see that we are defining it right here. So now that we've looked at that, we'll begin work on our look schema. So in our API file, we're going to create two new folders, one for our look and one for our image scraper. And we're going to create three new files here: the index, the controller, and the model. We'll do something similar for our image scraper, except we're just going to create an index and a controller. And we're going to add a folder within here called scrapers. And this will define the various scrapers that we want to use. For now, we're only going to define one, which is going to be for Pinterest. Let's define routes for our APIs. So what we've done here is we've defined the routes that we're going to use in order to create post, put, delete options in our index controller. So on our front end, when we're using any of these routes, it will be prefaced by API/look/ whatever controller it is that we define. The same thing with API/links. This will be API/links/scraper or /image scraper. Then we'll use a post in order to go out and get the scrape. For now, we're just going to define variables that we'll use later in our index. I'm going to do the same thing for our image scraper. And I'm going to go ahead and define our route because there's only going to be one for our scraper. And we're going to make sure that the user is authenticated in order to use this route. Controller.scrape is a method that we will define within our controller. Let's go back to our look model and define what our model is going to be for our look. Now that that's done, let's get to work on our image scraper. At the top, we're going to include some modules. FS is built in to Node. Request is what we'll use to go to the URL that we ask for and get the data from, and then we'll be able to download the data or save it. And Cheerio allows us to get body elements that we want from a page in jQuery-like syntax. We're going to create a variable for our scrapers, which will be an object. Right now we're only going to define one scraper, which is for Pinterest. Scrape is the name of the method that we're going to export and that we're going to use as a post when we are trying to scrape a HTTP URL. Here's where we define the URL that we're trying to scrape. In the future, we might want to use more than one scraper, and so we're going to define a variable indicating which scraper we may want to use. So here we're saying if we find the word Pinterest in the URL that we submit, we want to use the Pinterest scraper. This is where we're going to be able to send the data back using response.json, getting the data and sending it back. We'll go ahead and save that. Now let's actually create the scraper that we'll use when a user submits a URL for Pinterest. Now we're going to export the method called list. So this is what we're using in our controller right here. We're going to export the URL with a callback. We'll create an error handler here. So if there isn't an error, then we'll go ahead and actually scrape the page. We're going to create some variables for what we want to scrape on the page. We use the $sign in order to use Cheerio. It's the standard for calling the main Cheerio function, which is load. We're going to get back a pin, which is going to be an object. The actual URL of the page that we scrape. This is going to be the actual image that we get back. And this is just a jQuery-like syntax that we'll look into a bit more. So this one in particular, it looks for a div that is saying item prop. Within the div, there's going to be an image element, and the .get1 is we're going to look for actually the second instance of this because it will appear twice on the page. The first time is for the avatar of the individual that's submitting the pin, and the second time will be the actual pin image, and that's what we're getting here. And we're also going to get back the description. And this is the pin that we're going to actually be exporting. And we're going to send a callback with the object that we're looking for. On trying to start up your server, you may have gotten some errors. So these are some fixes. First of all, the index files for both API, for the look, and for the image scraper. The index file, we need to make sure that there's a semicolon here. It wouldn't have given you an error, but it's certainly necessary. The image scraper, I originally put look.controller. This should be image scraper.controller. In the image scraper controller, I put Pinterest scraper.js. This should just be scraper/Pinterest.js. And in the Pinterest.js file in our image scraper, I had an extra ending parentheses, and I shouldn't have ended this. So if you want to comment that out and save all, then NodeMon will restart and you should be good to go.